Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. Today we are here with the wizard himself, or some people know him as the professor. Matt is joining me for our community webinar, and I'm going to release this as a main episode because, of course, the topic today, so relationship with food, is it's hard to, I feel, summarize as such with, it's such an individual experience in the bodybuilding space. We all come from different backgrounds, and that spans right into childhood. And I think that sometimes, and this is something I work on with clients, so Vic, obviously, you're my client on the call, and anyone that's listening that is a client, we talk about, right back into the upbringing, what the relationship with food was there, and then how that impacts you as you become a teenager, a young adult, an adult. And I feel like for sure it's something that if anyone's listening that is a coach, or of course you are an athlete, it's worth thinking about your upbringing as well because I feel like we can get into bodybuilding and forget our life before we become a bodybuilder or a competitor. And then it's like, actually, are these things contributing to how I think about food, how I behave around food, all of these different things? And hello, Ayana. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. So, Matt, without further ado, welcome back to the podcast, of course. And Matt's going to give obviously a male perspective as well. But what's good about Matt and I is that we're both very honest. We're both very happy to explore being vulnerable as well. And I said before, I haven't told Matt I'm going to say this, but I, I said before that he has a feminine energy.
Okay.
But by that I mean that he's happy to delve into subjects that perhaps sometimes I think that we maybe, there's this like male, female, and there's this divide sometimes between, but actually men feel too, men have emotions too. And I really like how you're able to bring that to the podcast as well, because any males listening, of course, resonate with you as well. So, where should we start after that intro?
That's a hefty intro for sure. And I think the relationship with food side of stuff is it depends where you're coming from and where you're going to with it, right? Like if you're getting into bodybuilding and you're going to have a start point, it has the potential to change your relationship with food completely from wherever it might have started because there's such a heavy focus on it. Because moving and manipulating it and changing it around is, people throw around it's 80% food, it's 10% this, it's 20% that. But when you're micromanaging it, it becomes 100% of that sub focus, right? Like if you're talking about your nutrition, you're talking about your carbs, your fats, your proteins, you're talking about them all the time, you're moving them up or you're taking them away, you're putting them pre workout, post workout, and food moves away from necessarily being enjoyment, social, and it goes into being performance or physique based. And something that I was made aware of early on in terms of coaching is your words carry so much weight that something you say because someone or a group of people will look up to you because of your position, because of your influence, because of your stature in, how they view you. And those words carry so much weight that you can completely transform someone's relationship with a set of food, with food in its entirety. And I think sometimes we can get taken away from our own understanding, our own thoughts, and our own feelings around food because we can put it into, oh, I must eat like that because that person told me to eat like that, or that food is bad and this is actually for this. And if I don't do that, then this is the only outcome. But when we take away from that, because we're very tribal in our thought process, hence why you can be keto, you can be a carnivore, you can be a vegan, but because you believe that it's the healthiest way to be, not necessarily for ethical reasons. And you can get bought into these camps that then takes away your own exploration in terms of food. And you can speak to people who are mainly, keto, that are mainly carnivore, that are, omnivorous and kind of balance everything out. And they can all have great physiques. So I think one of the important things to do when we're looking at nutrition and the relationship with food when it comes to that is realizing that everything can yield a result, and to not close ourselves off necessarily to all of these things, and be self-aware, touch base with ourselves as to how we're feeling around food, how we may have felt when we very first started getting into lifting, bodybuilding, whatever it might be that you find yourself doing when you're listening to this, and having those touch points with yourself and going, how do I feel about food? Like a meal out, a meal with friends, something at work, a meal by myself, when I'm food prepping. Like, how does food feel for me? And allow yourself to feel those things. And if your narrative gets challenged, how does that also make you feel? Like, if I have a set way of believing, of eating, and someone challenges that, do I feel negatively about that? Do I feel negatively about myself about that? Do I feel negatively about the way they've spoken about it? And why do I feel like that? Because that's just exploration, right? Like, you're just feeling, and then you're allowing yourself to feel, and then you're allowing yourself to explore what those things are. There's no right or wrong. There's only a sort of continuum. And I think,
Yeah, it's when we go into the competitive bodybuilding realm, of course, I always say you've always got a choice. However, choice gets taken away from you in regards to how much you can have. So when you're in a preparation, it's like you've got, and depends what avenue you're going down, but you've either got a food plan or you've got macros. And of course, over time, generally speaking, that's going to decrease, and that decreases your availability and your variety of what you can select. So it's quite a hard narrative in regards to you have to do what you need to do to get to stage,
mm-hmm,
because then often what happens is we're tunnel vision on, okay, so I'm doing this for the goal of stage, and then it's afterwards, and of course, it's something I explore on the pod a lot, post show, reversing out how the off season looks, socializing, etc. It's the ebbing and flowing through these phases that becomes very difficult because, like you say, when you eat, when you experience different things, how do you feel? But in a preparation, you're almost not allowed to feel as such because you have a job to do.
mm-hmm,
You have that job to you can't. I mean, of course, there is cheating on the diet and veering off and etc. etc. But generally speaking, it's like you have this plan or these macros. This is what you need to do. This is getting the job done, and then it's hard to then sometimes explore what you're saying, the feeling of being able to enjoy your food, be present with your food, and have that selection available. When we actually look at the bigger picture, and this is going to depend on your coaching program, how you prep yourself, there is absolutely still opportunities to enjoy food at all times, even in the depths of prep. And of course, your taste buds do change. You get excited by the wildest of things, like we get excited by our vegetables. But I feel like a big part of this, guys, is in any phase, when we're looking at food and what we're eating, it's how you frame what that task is. So if your task and your job, as it were, is to do a preparation or a diet, if you feel hard done by, I don't want to do this, this is hard, my food's being taken away, any of those things that sort of negatively frame what you're doing, you can then start to veer into the relationship with food being negative because it almost feels like that food's being taken away. Why do I have to do this? And these things that start to feel the subconscious, and then it's very hard to be present because it's like, oh, I've got so little food here. I don't have many macros left. These types of things, you start to think, okay, so, but this is what my enjoyment was. I used to enjoy food, but I don't get to enjoy food anymore. However, if we wrap it round, like I say, and go, okay, so this is my meal, whatever meal it is. This is my macros. Okay, how can I enjoy this pursuit and be able to be present when I'm eating, maybe slowing down when we eat. There's different things that we can do within that, but it is hard because, especially when you do it for the first time. And I often think of this in my mind with check-ins. When I'm, delivering a feedback, it's like essentially as a coach, guys, we're having the power to take food away from our clients. So the goal is to lose body fat, prep, diet, however that is framed. Okay, so right, your food plan, your food is decreasing or your macros is decreasing. Okay, this week this is what you're gonna do. And I feel like a lot of people and maybe people don't speak about it as such, but me and Romana have spoken about this. You can almost get this sort of like a bit of an anxiety or like is my food gonna drop? Also, the sort of extension of that, well, have I done something wrong? My macros have gone down, my food's gone down. Have I done something wrong here? Does my body look okay? And then you get this extension of like, oh, okay, so my food's going down. That must mean, am I on track? And you can see all of these different things contribute to what can fill our head, and in turn start to affect our relationship with food.
Yeah, it's definitely a big one with coaching and how the data's correlated. And again, this will depend on how the coach conveys that, and obviously the in-depth discussion that go on within that, which is probably where one of those things from my position is like bringing the client or the person in on that decision making process, right? So like what is going on, as opposed to look at your physique, change your macros, this is what they are, crack on. Whereas if you understand what that process is, if you understand why those things are being moved and manipulated, then they can be a little bit more accepting. You can be a bit more like, okay, like I understand what that is and what this is. And that's with what you've been sort of talking about here, is that when you are a bodybuilder, when you are looking to compete and again, be competitive, that is part of what you sign up for when you're going through it, right? But that's also like, it's not oh, you're a bodybuilder now, like all of this is going to make sense. You're now just going to be able to do this and can kind of do that and box it off.
But that's sometimes
It's
assumed.
yeah, and it
Just
is
do.
like, yeah, 100%. But it's like your first, like you discussed previously with obviously Stephen, and your first season, it was like you've got no muscle. This is going to take time for you to build up and go through that. And it's like there is this thing within going into bodybuilding that's like, I'm going to be a bodybuilder now, and now I'm going to place first. I'm going to, do all of these things. But it's a journey, right? There are seldom lifestyle clients that I will take through something and be like, they're going to get it. They're going to get it. Like I am the be all and end all. I'm just going to fix this by setting the macros, taking them in and through the process. They need to learn. They need to go through the process and experience this stuff just as bodybuilders do. So you will need to go through like your diet phase. Like the first time you ever go through that and go to take yourself to stage, you don't know how low your food is going to have to go. You don't know how you're going to respond to that. You don't know how it's going to feel to do maybe hours of cardio. You don't know how you're going to feel, putting one foot in front of the other when you're so low on food and you've still got some cardio to do. Or the next day, you've got to get up at 5 a.m. to be on the Stairmaster for however long. But every time you do that, it's like channeling experience points, right? Every time you experience it, you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then you have to go through those things with food where it's like, oh, you know what? I hedonistically picked this food and I thought it was going to fill me up or it was going to, scratch that itch that I was going to go through, but it didn't. And then I can move and manipulate that. And that's where you evolve over those times. And maybe sometimes you don't feel it until, or you recognize it until the next prep where you're like, what I did last time, it worked, but it could work better by going through this. And I think that's where, to your point, like when you're going through this and you're going to compete, you're doing a job, you're going to take yourself to stage. You need to, adhere to that process as best as you possibly can through that time. But then that's where I think when you come out of the back end and you go into your growth phase and you go into that period of time away, there needs to be sufficient time away from that point where you can then put in those parts and you can spend that time kind of learning, building that relationship with food, going through that first point when, and everyone's done it, when you've gone through your first hard diet and you're like, you have that first bit of food, and that first bit of food could be, it could be a Nando's chicken breast, and you're like, oh my God, my face feels like it's going to melt. Like, this is absolutely insane.
Chicken breast
Yeah.
cooked differently.
Yeah, then someone walks past with like garlic bread and you're like, you float through your chair and you're like, I'm following that exactly where I'm going. And it's like, And stuff that you used to think was like, my meal prep is banging, like this sauce is insane, like
Like
this
the
is
zero
amazing.
calorie sauces
Yeah.
that we all used to use, and then we're like, oh God, this is horrible.
Yeah, you have it like 3 weeks later and you're like, I actually ate this and I told other people to eat it.
On
And
egg
that is,
whites.
yeah. And you're like, that's why everyone was looking at me weird. But like when you experience that for the first time and when you experience like the fact that you can be so hungry, you can eat so much food and you can still feel not satiated. Like you can't convey that to someone unless they've experienced it, and therefore you can't experience it unless you experience it. And this is where like that conversation needs to take place. And when I'm talking about like building that relationship with food and understanding where that is, this is where that needs to be that sufficient time between to go, okay, well, this is going to be really hard off the back of it. It's probably going to be harder than it was going into the actual competition, because when you get so far into it, and especially when you've done multiple diets, like you've done multiple diets, I've done multiple diets, it becomes relatively easier as you go through it because you're like, I know the drill. I know what's going to happen. I know that I'm going to be dragging my ass. I know that I'm probably not going to feel like doing steps all the time. I know that my hunger's going to be through the roof, but I'm just going to sit with it. And the same goes for the other side. And that's where that understanding needs to be. Like, this is what's going to happen. I can describe it till I'm blue in the face. You need to feel it, but then there needs to be that communication. And having people there to talk about it is incredibly important. And it's not just to focus on that, but it's like a, it's the elephant in the room as to when you complete a really hard diet, your hunger hormones are going to be skewed, your mood, your energy. You've also removed a massive goal that you're working towards. Like your sole focus is to improve your physique, to present your physique. And once those shows are done, once the photo shoot is done, once the diet is done, once whatever it is, you've put all of this, everything, relatively speaking, your sleep, your stress, you managing your work around everything else that you're doing for that point, and then it goes poof, and it's gone. And you can't just go, well, we need to talk about the after diet. We need to talk about that because you need that focus to be on that point. And that's where you need to go through these multiple iterations. And it's okay to go through those iterations, go, yeah, my first prep, it was really hard and it like blew up in this way, that way, the other way. But you need to know about how that happened because that's how you work through those. Like, I wouldn't be at the point where I'm at with food now if I hadn't gone through all those things and just gone, okay, well, that didn't go to plan. But now I know that actually I can do this instead, or I can do that instead. And you wouldn't be where you're at without the exact same thing, without those exact same moments. And it's not that you can eradicate them by coaching someone, but you can make people aware of them and you can certainly relate to people in a like we know how that feels.
Hmm.
Like, and other people who've gone through it will also know how it feels. And that's where, when there are other people outside of this echo chamber of, because bodybuilding is very niche, relatively speaking, people will have done like, a diet and they've lost 10 pounds or they've lost 20 kilos. And they'll be like, yeah, I get it. And you're like, hmm, you haven't taken yourself down to single digit body fat and spent, 7 hours a week on cardio, blasting yourself apart whilst also not missing training sessions and doing everything else.
And
But
working and
yeah, but I understand the point that you're kind of giving me. However, this is very different to that. And it's when you experience that and then you do talk to other people and then you learn off other people. And that's the point, is like, we're all learning, we're all take, and if you can take little bits from people and you can go, and that resonates, and that's something that could change, and not having an inherent bad feeling about it, like you fucked up, you did the worst thing ever possible. Like, no, there's chances are there's other people who've done that shit as well, right? Like that, and that's okay. But what are you going to do to put in place? And not like you need to fix all of those things. You're not looking at a burst pipe in 17 places and going, I'm going to put my fingers on all of them and then like another burst is going to happen somewhere else. It's like, well, that's probably a big thing that I can change and challenge, and that's okay. And then I can progress that. And that's you staying in tune with it, but also not beating yourself up at the same time. Because you can go, yeah, I fucked up. Loads of people fuck up. And people do that stuff all of the time. It's by shining a light on it and going, okay, cool, this is what I could do better next time. And if you've got coach, if you've got someone supporting you around that, even better. And if not, there's going to be people out there, and this is where, what you do and speaking about it, putting posts about it, like doing those things, you're going to see other people in the comment section. You're going to, and it normalizes it to a certain degree, which I think is a good thing, because when you feel isolated and you feel like you're the only person who's done that, you're the only person who's fucked up, you're the only person who feels like that, it feels very lonely. And then it feels like you've done something wrong and you don't really know how to dig yourself out, because then you just see other people succeed and other people doing really well. But then you realize over time of spending a lot of time in the industry, take it from me, that those people struggle with it too. They just don't necessarily talk about it. And again, that's okay. But even the people that you think that don't absolutely do, because nobody's a robot and everyone's got their own little things that are going on. And sometimes that's nice to know as well. So
Yeah, I feel like as well, like the main pivotal example, which I have spoken about on the podcast before, but you're here, so obviously we can talk about it with you here, is when you booked that holiday when I for my birthday as a surprise. And I was on my way back from the gym, and Matt messaged me saying I've booked for us to go to Turkey. Straight away, I was like, holy fuck, he's booked an all-inclusive holiday. I don't want to go. I how can I do my bodybuilding? Is there a gym there? Is it all inclusive? Is he going to expect me to eat? Like my brain exploded, and I'm walking home thinking, shit. And I got back, went up to the bathroom, and I sat on the toilet and I cried, and I was like, I've got to pretend that I'm okay with going on holiday, and we were fairly new to our relationship. Now, obviously, Matt's paid for an all-inclusive holiday, right? Like that should be on the outside of things a very nice gesture, a very, very grateful thing for me to experience. But I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do here. Like, I don't feel comfortable with this. I was like, the gym was the same time every day, doing my steps, my food, was all in line. I was just in the groove. And I think this is important as well as bodybuilders. We can absolutely experience in any phase where we're really in the groove. Like we can easily isolate ourselves into the structure, the routine, etc. So I didn't say anything to Matt, and all the way up to before we left, I'm thinking, shit, I don't want to go. Like this is terrible. This is terrible, and I'm like, I'm really excited, and
you genuinely came across really excited. I was
yeah.
good. Yeah.
And it was funny because we were on the plane on the way there, and I think it's because on a plane there's no internet connection. You're just, you're just you. You're in this like abyss. You're in the plane. And we were talking about something, and I just literally lost my shit. I broke down, and I was like, and I explained, as soon as you messaged me, I went home, went up to the toilet, was crying. I was thinking, I don't know what to do. I'm really scared to have choice. And that's where I was at, guys. I was just scared at choice, and having the all-inclusive, delicious foods, fresh foods. When we got there, and I think I'd probably built it up in my own mind that there wasn't going to be the chicken, there wasn't going to be the stuff that I like. But actually, what I realized on that holiday, and it was so nice, wasn't it? Because it was like fresh fish, chicken. I even tried some liver, which I've never tried. And when I tried that, I was like, and this is a bit off topic, but I was like, I feel like my body needed some good fats. And my body was like, and I ate this liver and I was like, oh my God, this is delicious. It was like, well, I've just released a podcast about a drug addiction. It was like crack. I was like, oh my God, I just want to eat all this liver. And I'm thinking, this is just red meat, Sarah. But, and when I broke down on the plane, Matt did not expect it.
Matt did not expect it.
He was like, eh? Um, and I think, and the reason I wanted to bring that up, I think, the really big thing I took from it as well was that you saw me break down the explosions in my own mind about it all, the experience of letting it out, crying and crying and crying like I was crying a lot. It was like my whole bodybuilding career of my relationship with food, my insecurities, my worries, my anxieties, everything I'd faced with food came out on that plane. But that gave Matt an opportunity to go, I've actually got some things I need to work on as well. Because you didn't realize you still had some things you needed to work on with your relationship with food. And we haven't spoken about that I was going to drop that bomb, but you then started to explore. It's almost like, and this is what I feel like, and you can say your perspective, yours weren't as bad as mine, if we want to frame it like that, because of course going to stage multiple times and everything, that happened in my bodybuilding career to that time, but they were still very, they were so interlinked. So it was like I'm at this extreme of, 500 out of 10 of how much anxiety is driven through being scared of choice, etc., etc. Everything being tracked to the absolute letter. but you had all of those experiences in your own perspective, and it actually brought us closer together
Mm.
when we delved into them. And then we've both been on these like mini epiphany journeys since then to get to where we are now. Would you say I've described that in the way that you would?
Yeah, I think we've both like leveled each other up in regards of shining a different light on the other's perspective around food. I think mine majorly shifted, and we'll circle back to this. So I used to just like prep my food, be on point with everything, like just followed like a specific meal plan. And then I went and got coached, and they just introduced like if it fits your macros, and they were like, these are your macros, do what you want with it. Like, here's some examples. And then it was like introduced all this food that I hadn't had before, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like smash my face into all these food because spoiler alert, everyone, I love food. Like, and when I say
He's
I love
called Fat
food,
Matt. He's got a Fat Matt gremlin
yeah,
inside.
I'd say
He says Fat Matt's here.
if Fat Matt gets out, we got a whole world of pain. Like, we're talking no longer bodybuilder, more power lifter, food enthusiast. And I got the strength to back it up, so I could carry it off if I wanted. But that opened up, and bear in mind there was no coaching along with that. There was just think about it like this: an open sea of whatever you want with these, and if you want some additional food, you can have it. Well, that's a great way of coaching. We won't mention names,
But
but
people might experience this either on the call or listening.
yeah.
That meal plan to
And that's the thing, right? It's not one or the other. It's you get to explore those things. And if you're not spending one time or some time, more than likely exploring what those worlds mirrored together, because I could eat the same breakfast, the same lunch, the same dinner, and have a different snack. I could play around with some macros. I could do the opposite. I could do, mostly playing around with stuff and vice versa. You can just intermingle those things. And I think a large degree of that stuff that comes on is this plain way of thinking, like telling someone you can't have this, you can't. Now there are certain, you're not fitting a chocolate gatto into like, a prep final week,
that's
whatever.
a shit choice anyway.
Yeah,
You wouldn't choose a bloody gatto,
I just
would you
went.
guys? We're bodybuilders. We like Reese's.
I went.
Or velvet cake or something.
Red velvet, yeah.
Yeah.
A giant cookie pie.
Or apple crumble and custard.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But you're not fitting a family size one of those into your last week of like whatever, right? So like there are those things where that's just going to be completely off piste and you won't be able to do that. But that changed and moved my things around with food from that perspective. And it took me a long while to kind of wrap my head around like how I can bring those things back. Because bear in mind, it'd been years and years and years of kind of like just meticulously having everything. Like I used to do my weekly photograph of all my food that was prepped and ready to go. Like everyone
Instagram
does,
story.
no one really cares. Just
Hi guys, I got 20
yeah.
boys here.
And it's just like that stuff. And then when I had my injury around my bicep and I tore it off the bone and I wasn't able to train, but I just trained legs instead, that was my first emotional thing of having all of my infrastructure taken away because I'd sorted the food thing relatively, like as far as I was aware. And then this gave me I've just had the gym taken away and I need surgery and I now don't get to do what I loved to do. And my whole world was around that. Like I didn't go on holidays and stuff. So I got the perspective of like where Sarah's coming from because I didn't go on holidays because I was just training
Scared.
and yeah, I was training. I didn't want to remove my routine. I just wanted to be in that routine of doing those things day in, day out, week in, week out, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I used to go to the gym with my clients on Christmas Day, those that wanted to come along with it. And before that, I'd go by myself anyway. So it was just like that was what I was doing. 24-hour gyms, yes. And I used to be fearful of ever taking any time off. Like that's how meticulous it got with it. And then when I had the thing taken away, I didn't know how to deal with that. And I was just building my business like at that point where that got taken away. So it was like everything was basically removed. And then I was building this thing that I didn't really know what I was building because no one helps you with that. And everything was kind of uncertain. And then that started to lead into like eating just through my emotions. And that was the first time that I've ever kind of done that because I didn't know how to replace the irreplaceable levels of sadness that I experienced because I couldn't train. I couldn't train the way that I wanted to, and I was watching my body atrophy. like waste away. Albeit I got into training legs 4 or 5 times a week, which was the best thing I ever did because now my legs are my best body part, so it's fine. But at that time, I didn't have the power of, foresight in terms of where that was going to be. And I found myself in a really bad place with that, where I could rip through like four packets of cookies, 4 packets of 4 cookies. That's not a problem. Like I could do that. I could go home and eat a pizza after I've like been coaching because I haven't got time to meal prep. And eventually, after months and months and months of doing that, and I was training like, doing the steps, doing Stairmaster, walking to the gym, doing all that stuff. But I felt lost. I felt like I let myself down. I felt like all of these things that were going through my mind, and I didn't enjoy what I was. I did enjoy aspects of what I was doing, but I knew that I wasn't wholeheartedly doing the things that I needed to do. And I was doing everything that I could rehab wise, and like the baseline nutrition was there, all of that stuff, because I wanted to recover more than anything. And I've never really spoken about that sort of stuff. Um, and it was immeasurably hard to be in that. And I'm also immeasurably grateful to have gone through that because it means that I can help people understand what that feels like. I know what it feels like to just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and not really feel any better for it, but also like not necessarily be able to stop that because there wasn't anything that was able to tick over my happiness, my sat override the sadness that I was feeling from not being able to do the things that I needed to do. And eventually I just went, you know what, I just need to put some structure back in my life because I'm regaining structure and I don't have the time because by this point I was busy because I'd steamrolled into work and it was like I'd just replaced the training side with work side and I picked up clients, picked up, and I was just busy and I was doing education. I was going away and doing all this stuff. So I just said, right, now I'm just going to order like meal prep foods. It was the first time like meal prep companies had kind of come in. And I was like, I'm just going to order them foods. I'm going to put the money into that. I'm just going to get myself some structure back and I'm just going to blast that. I started to do that and then I was like, I need to put some stuff back in myself. So then it was like my breakfast, I can do that. Like that's fine. My last meal, I can start to replace that a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to do like on the day that I might have like a little bit less clientele, like I'm just going to pull them forward a little bit and then I'm going to cook my own dinner and I'm going to do that and I'm going to replace that. I'm just going to start introducing new foods again and start to see how that feels. I'm not going to do it every day. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do it here and there where I can have that mental capacity to go and do that. And I started to do that. And then when I started to do that, I started to be like, oh, okay, cool. I feel better now. I feel like I'm more in that kind of space where I'm able to look after myself. I'm able to kind of do these things, and it feels good to be able to do that. And then the training started to come back, and I was, went to chest pressing a 2.5 kilo dumbbell on my arm, which was great, absolutely amazing. Didn't remember doing the 55 kilo dumbbells for reps at all. Didn't emotionally tear me back to that point. But those things were still there. And I recognized that those emotional things were still there. I'll tell you now that the triple chocolate cookies from Tesco's Finest are absolutely banging. And I may well
Irremediable.
have consumed more than most people have ever consumed of those cookies. And I'll go toe to toe with people on that. And those things are still there. Talking about it now, I am salivating talking to you about it. And I'm like, they are happy memories for the most part. I mean, 4 bags of them, probably not. But those things were there. And I can tell you now, without those things being there and without those things and self-actualizing it and talking about it and working through it and be that in my own mind to a degree, I wouldn't be where I am without food because I'm so self-aware and I'm not afraid of having a cookie. You released
I
that
just did
podcast. Yeah.
the
And
podcast last night about that.
where the previous times where it was like, I don't think I can open one of those packs of cookies and not eat all four. And I've done that since. I've eaten two and thrown the other two away just to be like, hey, this is how far I've come. And not throwing them away straight away, put them on the side and been like, I'm going to walk past these every time I go to the fridge or every time I just walk past and I'm just going to walk past them a few times. Or I'm even going to do check-ins next to them or whatever. And I just, my client's like, why did you keep looking down to the right? And I'm like, no reason, I'm just eyeing up these cookies. And then they went in the bin. And I've done that subsequent times. And again, those things, and this is where food and relationship with food, and it's multifaceted. We're all going to have, like when I describe these things, everyone on here and everyone who's going to be listening to this will probably have slightly different thought processes around this, maybe even relate to certain different aspects, certain different things that they've experienced during this time, during that. And that's why it's important to talk about it because someone can send you a video on nutrition, someone can send you a podcast on nutrition, someone can but it's the conversational aspect of talking about how you feel about it, of talking about what your previous experiences were. Like, what were my previous experiences growing up with food? Like, you can dive into all that. We won't, don't worry, I won't bore
We're
you today.
literally opposites, aren't we?
Yeah. And that's important because that formulates your habits, what you grew up around, what you see food as, but also then your work environment and all the other things that go with it. And this is why the conversation around food is so important because your understanding and where you're trying to get to is somewhat laid down from the psychological and the neurological pathways that have been laid down previously. And then when you get into this, and this is where I think that the self-actualization and the discussion around how you're feeling during this process is important, and to spend adequate time away from the micro where you don't really get much say over what you're going to eat, or you don't have the flexibility to be able to have this and that combination and that combination, where you do get some more food and you do get some more periods of time where you can explore, that is important because then you can start to unpick those things. And if those things were there, and if they weren't there, great. Like that's amazing. And then you can just go on to explore different foods and explore on how much you can grow off various different things and things of that nature. And this is where, like, coming back full circle to what we spoke about, like from my experiences of like not going on holiday, I'd had then this thing of opened up to going on holidays and to experiencing food, to being like, wow, like you can have all this different type of food, and like this is something that you've paid for, and this is where when people go out for food and it's like, well, I paid for the meal, I'm not going to leave the food. Like I paid for an all inclusive. Like I'm not going to allow Fat Matt to have disappointment coming back from holiday. Like we're going to enjoy ourselves to the max. And over time, like I've understood that I don't need to like maximize that. I don't need to diet down just for that holiday to go and do that. But equally, there are times where I might go somewhere and I might be like, you know what, I really want to just enjoy this, and I accept the consequences at which will come back from that, and I'm okay with it. But to the same end, I'm not going to do it to the level where I'm just doing it needlessly. And
You're
I can
sabotaging
recognize
almost.
that. Yeah. And that takes time, and it takes a certain degree of recognizing your own habits, your own traits, your own, inclinations. And as I say, I love food. Like I love all kinds of food. I like trying different foods, different cuisines, going to different places and experiencing that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also understanding how that makes you feel on a day-to-day basis and how that makes you feel within yourself, because in the moment isn't in the macro of the rest of the time that you live your life. And if you live your life in that micro moment, a lot of times it does impact the macro, and then it's breaking that down and finding that balance in between those things. And that's where that post show period is really important, because that's where those things are going to be so skewed and so thrown off, and it's difficult to understand what someone's feeling during that time. But so many people feel a very similar amount of things, like that food never satisfying, never satiating, just being incredible, like whatever it is,
Mm.
that talking about that kind of demystifies that. And that's where we have been very fortunate to like find each other in that way. And I am, like you said, we grew up in sort of opposite ways and raised around food in opposite ways. And our applications to food, like one of the things that we've done together is you've broadened your horizons on many different foods over the time, and it's been over the time, and there's no rush to do that as well. Like I'm not thinking, oh, Sarah needs to have like 500 different types of food within the next 5 months because it's important to have variability. It's like, no, like with the liver, it's like, oh, that looks quite nice. Okay, well, you could try some, right? Like just have a couple of pieces, and if it tastes nice, you could have more of it. Like that's cool. If you don't want to try it and you just want to put it on the plate and smell it and go, eh, it looked better than it actually smells. So like that's cool as well. Like there's no pressure or expectation of like doing that. And that's why when it was a holiday, it's like we'll find somewhere that's got chicken, we'll find somewhere that's got lettuce, we'll find somewhere that's got whatever it is. Like that's cool. And then we'll just be in the sun and you'll be eating, relatively the same bodybuilding foods that you were before.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that's always what it's kind of been. And that's where, food can really bring you together, even if it's not, going for a red velvet cake or going for a cookie pie, or it can be on many different fronts, and it all starts with that communication aspect. And that can be scary, right?
Yeah, because certainly since meeting Matt, so nearly 4 years we've been together. Like when we first met, as you guys might recall from the pod, 4 weeks after we met, I went into a prep. So Matt's never been with a competitor before, and he's grown up around competitive bodybuilders. You know, Mr. Britain, all of these people that sort of influence your journey. But then, obviously, living with a bodybuilder in a prep was quite an experience for you, wasn't it?
Living with Sarah, the bodybuilder, is quite the experience because she literally does everything to the letter. Like I've spent time around bodybuilders who do a lot, like, and it is their life, and they're not like hobby builders, like as is the
Like
coined phrase
competitive.
now.
Yeah.
They are competitive, but like there's a difference between competitive people who say they do a lot and actually don't, and there's a lot of them, and I experienced a lot of them who, on the face of it, said they did all of these things, but then they probably did like 70% of them. And then there's a few that are like right up there in the 90-95% mark that I've spent time around. Sarah's like 100% bodybuilding. So, like, everything is for that outcome. Everything is weighed, measured. Everything will get done all of the time, even if there's injury or even if there's anything else. So, that is very different.
Yeah, and that's where I think for me it was like you seeing it to that degree and the respect that was formed for you to see how what I do pour into prep. I then could get the almost trust Matt to encourage me to be able to include different foods, to try different foods. And I'm talking like instead of one green veg, having an orange vegetable, like things that are quite normal outside of bodybuilding. But I just, like I would view root vegetables, carrot, swede, as a carb, whereas Matt's like it's a vegetable, and I'm like it's still a carb because it's a lot higher in carbs than green vegetables. And I have like you say it's like the matrix of my fitness pal. So you can say a food and I can say what macros they are because I spent so long on my fitness pal working out because I've always done flexible dieting. But the reason I say that is because I needed to trust you to be able to encourage me. So we can experience our partners, people around us saying, you're okay to have X, Y, Z. So say you're going for a meal out or the holiday or whatever it is. It's off season, post show, reverse out, whatever around that. We take prep out of it because generally speaking, that's going to be set. But I almost like, I wouldn't listen initially because I'd just be like, doesn't know what he's talking about. Doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm a competitive bodybuilder. I know what I want to do. I don't need to explore different foods. Nope. I've never had a snack in my life. Maybe as a child, but not as a bodybuilder. 10 plus years since till we've met. I'd never had a snack. I'd never had a snack. First snack was with Matt in a car. It was a biscuit. But like it was meal one, meal two, meal three. And it was just and it's like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He hasn't competed. And that's what we can find ourselves doing. We absolutely can. Because it's like you said, well, you haven't been through what I've been through. Now, Matt's taken diets to the nth degree for photo shoots, etc., and got incredibly lean. Lean enough, I would say, not far off stage condition. So you've absolutely walked the walk. But I was so in my own head with it, with thinking, well, I know what I'm doing with food. I am in control. I don't need anyone else to help me here. This is me. I'm in control. So that took time to trust his encouragement to then be able to, like on one holiday, we walked along with an ice cream. I haven't done that. I don't do that. I don't do these things. I don't eat between meals because I'm a bodybuilder. I'm Sarah the bodybuilder. I can't do that. And what I found, what I'd done is essentially shut off the emotions that come with food that include enjoyment. So even in the off season, it was purpose led meals. It was purpose led. If my coach and it was, off plan at the weekends, he would say, we'd have a discussion and he'd be on the call and he'd be like, do you really need to talk through exactly what you're going to have from the menu? And I'm like, yeah, but I need to know that you're saying it's okay that I can have the chicken tikka masala with rice. Okay, do I have a small? Do I have a like? I needed to know that that was even off plan was the plan, right? So it's not there wasn't like this. I'll sit at a restaurant and go, oh, what do I fancy? Now, of course, there's going to be people that are, on their bodybuilding journey that are having off plan and they would just go for a meal, right? Like you go to a restaurant and go, I'll have a starter, main, dessert. And my coach, obviously, if you heard the podcast with him, it was like, Sarah, will you just have a fucking meal out? But I had to know that I cleared it with him. I had to know that he was okay with what I was eating. I then, after the day after an off plan, this is what I had, everything we discussed. So there was literally, even in choice, there was no choice, if you see what I mean. It was like I needed to know that I'm a good bodybuilder. I've done what my coach has agreed. Right, cool. Okay, he knows exactly what I've had. Even though it's more calories, he knows what I've had. He's cleared it. We're all good. We're all good. So then when Matt started to, say, should we go to this new restaurant that's opened up? I'm thinking, what the fuck? I've got to sit and look at a menu. What the fuck do I do here? And then it got to the point where it would be like, I could try a little bit of, if you ordered like, say, a chicken burger or whatever, I could have a bite. And that's what it started with, wasn't it? So it would be, and Tom, my second coach, was fine. Off plan would be have a starter, main, dessert, or whatever. We'd talk about it depending on where I was at. So it'd be like, can I have a bite of that? Now, what's scary, guys, is when you have a bite of it and it tastes really fucking good, and you realize, oh, food is nice. Shit, what do I do? What do I do? Because I feel really good eating this, and I want to eat more. Now, that's where I find, if I'm being honest, the difficulty can come because food tastes nice. But if you're anything like me and you've shut that part off, even when I was having the tikka masala for off plan or whatever it was that I discussed with my coach, I wasn't. It was a plan, right? Like it was, and if you can relate to that in a brain like mine, it was like, but I've got clearance for that. But I haven't got clearance if I was to order something from a menu that I haven't gone, Stephen, can I have this? Yeah, but it's ways. I mean, this is the point where it got to. So with my ex-husband, we'd have the tikka masala. We'd order a side of spinach. So like it was just like wilted spinach and some spices or whatever. I still do it sometimes with you if we have, something and we bring it back. I would weigh out the spinach and tell Stephen, right, I mean, he doesn't know what the fucking macros are from an Indian spiced spinach and he doesn't care. You would have picked that up on the podcast with him. He didn't care. He wanted me to have off plan. That's the point. Enjoy it. But I'd weigh it out and I'd write in my notes in my phone. Okay, so I had the tikka masala, I had this much rice weighed out, I had this much spinach weighed out. And it was like I had this regime, so I'd put it in the microwave for a little bit longer, okay, and then I'd say to my husband, right, 2 minutes out, and it has to be piping hot. I'm not relaxing here, guys. I'm not really enjoying this. I'm doing it because my coach has said to have off plan. I'd rather, if I'm honest, just stick to my food plan. And that's not the point in off plan. And this is why I talk about it. Generally speaking, if your coach is saying have off plan, it's for you to go and make memories. It's to be present. It's to explore foods. It's to enjoy foods and hopefully give benefit to your relationship with food. But then I started to explore this with you, and it was like, okay. And then he'd go, do you want another bite? Because obviously Matt would see me enjoy it. My face would light up. I'd be like, this is really nice. And then he'd be like, do you want some more? Because he's a giver, a carer for me, special Sarah. And I'd be like, no. So then I try and build this like, if it looks nice, have the bite. Okay, so today I'm just going to have the one bite. I'm going to stop it there and then I'm going to concentrate on my meal. I'm going to enjoy my meal. If we go back to that restaurant, I might actually have what Matt had. Quite scary for me personally, but I might do that. And then I started to just challenge the narrative, like you say, with, different things with the cookies, putting them on the side and letting them sit there. They're sitting there. They're still there. They're still there. Okay, they're going in the bin. I'm not going to eat them. So there's so many different things from if you're used to eating more like Matt's experience, wanting to eat more things. I'm on the other end of the spectrum where it's scary to eat more. It is because, when you're so institutionalized by your own thoughts, when you do get a palate experience, and that doesn't need to just be reversing out and post show, that could be height of off season. Because if you are on a food plan day in, day out, day in, day out, let me tell you, mentally that can become fatiguing. Yes, we do it for the cause. Yes, we do it for bodybuilding. I'd like to say that you'll be hard stretched to find, loads of people that are as passionate about bodybuilding as me, and you guys share that passion. There's not loads of us, right? We are passionate about this. However, it's mentally draining when you are literally to the letter every single day. And that's where I say I understand the cause, I understand the purpose. But what I started to realize, guys, like Croatia, after my 19-week diet this year, I put on a pound. I ate a plethora of food. I ate veggies, meat. I had, little desserts in the evening. I would have less food in the day. In the evening, I would have more. That's my preference. I explored, and that absolutely you'd have more than me. But I need to remember I'm a small female, he's a male. So that's, I don't need to go, well, he gets to eat more, which can happen because you see other people eat more and you think, why can't I do that? Why don't I get to eat more? Why do they get to eat all of that? Again, this can happen in our own mind. But I'll just say to you, with when you were having like the pizza, because of my sensitivities, not intolerances, but sensitivities from so many preps, I say to Matt, how does it taste? That looks really good. And and it's like you can still explore that as a couple or with friends with going, I bet that's really nice. It doesn't have to be like, but I don't get to eat that because I know I can't have certain foods right now. I'm still working on that and building up my GI and you know, my gut, as it were. But I don't need to feel resentment to you because you can eat things that, I mean, I can eat them, but I'm gonna get acid reflux. I'm not gonna feel good going to bed. I'm gonna be, not in a good way. I'll get bloating, etc., etc. But when I say in Croatia, I ate a lot more food than I eat in my normal day-to-day life. We were active, we trained, and I just enjoyed it, guys. Like I just literally enjoyed it. I was just like, do you know what? I'm actually going to go on holiday here and I'm going to test myself. I'm just going to go round the all-inclusive thing and select some items that look nice. And I'm going to eat them. And I'm not going to think about this too much. I'm just going to see how it tastes, enjoy it, experience it. If I don't like it, give it to Matt and he'll eat it. So we're fine.
True story.
We're not wasting food. But it's such a journey, guys. Like as I say, we've been together nearly 4 years. And I say this and I mean it. And I never want to say this from a point of, and anyone listening, I never want to say this from a point of like, well, look at me. I'm okay with food now. I can just take it or leave it. It's not that at all, guys. Like, I was imprisoned for over 10 years. Anxious, scared. It's an emotional week this week, but I know what it feels like. It's so debilitating. So to be here, and this is why I talk about it because I feel it, guys. Like, it's so hard, but it's possible because I'm sitting here now and it is possible. You can see it's possible if you do suffer with restriction, if you do suffer with being scared of choice, being scared to go out, being scared to go to social occasions, being worried about weight gain, being worried about enjoying food and then not knowing how to control yourself. It is possible to come through this and be able to enjoy food in all phases and be able to push and pull your calories to suit your goal. But this is where what Matt said about the conversation, talking about it, being able to acknowledge how you feel. And this is whether it's the spectrum of, overeating, undereating. And this is the hard bit. When you say be kind to yourself, there's elements to that could lead to going, oh, just go and eat a load of chocolate. That's nice. Be kind to yourself. And I don't mean that. What I mean is give yourself time. Allow yourself to, on that plane, guys, I tell you, it felt like a fucking demon was coming out of me. I was like, I was letting it out. I was in tears, but I let that fucker out. I'm not letting you control me anymore. I'm taking control here because this is my life and bodybuilding is my life. And if this is detrimental to my mental health, if this is fucking my head up, this is not what my passion could be. My passion could be me enjoying, like now, waking up every morning so happy that I have this gift of bodybuilding because I'm not imprisoned by the relationship with food, the relationship with my body, and I'm able to be Sarah the bodybuilder and just be free. But it is that journey and it is that time. And I'm happy to feel the emotions, guys, because you know me, right? Like, this isn't me, getting upset because of anything other than that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like when you're held by food. Your whole mind is consumed by food. And as we've spoken about already, there is elements that need to be controlled by food, particularly in a prep. And obviously, when we're reversing out, it is if you're wanting to do this in an efficacious way to your goals and look at your body composition and be able to go into a successful off season, for sure we need considerations there. But there's so much to life as a bodybuilder. I'm so happy, I'm so fulfilled. Emotions for me doesn't mean I'm not happy, it means I can feel. But I didn't allow myself to feel because I was a robot for so long. And that's a tricky spot to be in. Now, not all of you guys are going to have a mat. And that's what I also find difficult when we share what we've done, is that I'd love to give this gift, a supportive partner or a friend or someone that you can confide in, that you can be honest with. We don't all have that. But if you do, or you can start to experience this with other people, think about that trust. How can you build the trust with someone to maybe be vulnerable and for them to encourage you to go have the bite of the burger or whatever it is? I got to the point where I wouldn't even have, like, when I cooked you onions that day and I was like, these onions smell so nice. They smell so good. They remind me of a child, the burger van, where you'd be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm gonna get a hot dog with the greasy onions. And then one day we had a little ramekin of some onions with a bit of parmesan, and I was like, wow, I've had a snack. I've had some onions, and I haven't had onions for years. But it's novel things like that that sound fucking ridiculous to the outside world. But if you have struggled like myself, that type of thing is very empowering. Doesn't need to be 10 cookies. It can be the little ramekin of onions with a bit of parmesan, right? Again, sounds ridiculous, but the thing is, you could go, well, that's away from the food plan. However, if you're working with a coach and you're working on things like this, there is encouragement. And I've worked with plenty of food disorder specialists alongside clients that are struggling with food disorders. The actual there's a lot of the sort of foundation and the groundwork of the food disorder specialist side of things is freedom of choice, is to challenge the narrative, to have a baseline set of rules, as it were, so protein, micronutrients, etc. But every day experience a little bit of the ramekin or the whatever it is, Kit Kat, or but don't then take it further. And that's the that we can struggle with if it's from a self-restriction standpoint. When you suddenly taste food, you go, oh my God, it tastes really good. But you can see there, guys, I could talk about this for hours and I don't want to make this all about me, but I want to continue to express that when I talk about these things, I want to try and resonate with as many of you as I can to say I feel what it feels like. Matt feels what it feels like. The guests that come on feels what it feels like. And there's no magic solution, there's no remedy. And this is the thing where I say multiple food disorder specialists, when we look at that side of things, you're not always going to gel with a coach. You're not always going to gel with a food disorder specialist. You're not always going to gel with the mythologies of how they preach, how you should, work on these things. Because as I said with Matt, I was like, you don't know fuck all. Bearing in mind he's coached for years, he's done his own diets, he's done his own growth phases, he's done this for years, longer than me. You don't know what you're fucking talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. And that's what was in my mind. His lips are moving, and all I'm thinking, I can't hear anything. You don't know what you're fucking talking about. He doesn't know that I used to think that. But then I'm allowing the trust, I'm building the trust, I'm building the trust. Okay, maybe I'll listen a little bit. That was okay. I'm not going to take it on board just yet, but I'll listen. Then I'll listen again and I'll listen again. So it's such an exploration. And the thing is with this topic, it's difficult to a certain degree because everyone is so different.
Hmm.
There is such a spectrum. And one thing that you might find, guys, if you do start to lean on people for support, if you do start to open up, the support that comes back might not be what you want to hear. That's also difficult. It can either be the ugly truth, or it can be a yes man, or it can be anywhere in between. That can then make you think, well, I don't need support then. I'll just struggle on my own. I'll carry on my own. And I've had that multiple times because it's like, well, you don't get me. This is where I say the facilitation, guys, give it a chance. Allow yourself to be a bit open-minded and almost open the floor to go, what can I learn from this person? If that person genuinely cares about you, remember that. That's what I think. Matt cares about me. Matt loves me. He's not trying to get me to eat this food to sabotage me. At first, I thought he was. He's trying to sabotage my goals. Why would he want me to eat that? That's got calories in. Why do he want me to eat that? Why is he saying I should eat carrots instead of green beans? Disastrous. That's got far too many carbs in. Oh, it's because it's good for my gut. Okay, that makes sense. So it's this like, and the reason I give examples like this, guys, is to make you realize you're not fucking stupid. If you resonate with any of these little things that we're having a laugh about today, it is real, right? It is. It absolutely is. And allowing yourself to realize that's okay if you think in weird ways. Trust me, my brain works in very mysterious ways. But I like now. I go, okay, why have I thought like that? I wonder what that's about. Matt, can I speak to you for 2 hours? I've just had a thought. Can we go for a walk? But it's almost like this is where I say getting off on it, allowing yourself to feel like this is really weird. I feel this way. Maybe I could explore this with someone I trust. Maybe I could talk about this. That actually felt quite good to talk about it. They don't think like that, but that's okay. Okay, cool. Okay. What do I do about this? You know?
Hmm. I think that's where you're not trying to speed run through this process. You're not trying to, like, we're not on that plane journey going, by the end of this flight, this is going to be sorted out. You're going to feel cool about it. Everything's going to be all good. We're going to have the sun in our face, and you're going to be like, I can't wait to eat whatever food is randomly waiting for me. Like, it's not going to be like that. And you're not trying to speed run all of this in your first year or your second year or your third year. There's going to be stuff that you're going to come up against. And some of that stuff is going to be stuff that you're not even ready for yet. You're not even ready to explore that because you haven't started to explore the things that you're pushing. Or you may come off this call and be like, oh, I've actually realized this. By tonight, you're not supposed to have sorted that out. By tomorrow, you're not supposed to have sorted that out. But if it just starts the thought process rolling, that's cool. And exploring that is absolutely what you can take away from this is self-exploration, conversation, and those conversations, like Sarah says, like not everyone's going to have what we have. People have varying degrees, right? So people are going to have their own thing. But a lot of this stuff, you will have explored this by yourself. I remember when I was living in Australia, I went through a whole variety and world of thought processes when I was over there. And we went together at that point. And I went on self-exploration and I used to, things that helped me, where, everyone knows journaling, writing stuff down. I used to dictate into my phone. So it'd just be like I have headphones on and I just walk along like I was doing a voice note and I would do it to myself and I would just basically everything out of my mind. And I use the analogy of basically it's like everyone's got a loft, right? Like people put stuff in there. Basically, you had one when you were a kid. A Christmas tree came from there magically every single year, and everything just gets
Got the
thrown in
loft
there.
there.
Yeah, and the loft is the head, right? So all the stuff that just goes in there just gets put in there, and then there's some twine that basically just tangles everything together. And then you look up there and you go, well, I just need to root around, get the Christmas tree, and get the hell out of here because there's a load of shit in there. And by basically thought dumping out of my mind into my phone. And sometimes I'd read back through that, and sometimes the dictation would give weird words, and I'd be like, well, that's quite funny actually, but that isn't what I meant. But I know what I did mean, and then you reread it. Other times I'd never need to reread it because that stuff just got that out there. And sometimes that's all you need, and sometimes that's all you've got. And at that time, that was all I had. I had a coach at the time. Turns out Matt's coaching experiences weren't the best. But again, like I spoke to him about it, that was no good. This is what I came up with. And I was able to work through those things over time. And I think one of the things that's important that I want to just raise here is like, as you've gone through this and as you've explored it, and one of the biggest things in exploring this was like you say, is this guy trying to sabotage my physique? Is this guy trying to do that? Which is
Legit,
again fully
legit.
understandable, which is where, like, from my perspective, we weren't trying to speed run this thing, and you never are. But from where you are now and your physique and what you're doing right now, how is that? How has that changed it? Like from a bodybuilding perspective, like from opening up your plethora of things, like how has that changed?
It's wild. Like it is literally wild. Obviously, I self-coach now, and that was part of the evolution of dealing with, everything that we've spoken about and more, of course. But the freedom in my mind, and I say this, the physique follows the mind. Where the mind goes, the physique follows. Like my progress, I can't believe it when I look at my physique in the diets, in the off season. I can't believe it because I just do what I do. There's, I just cook my food, eat my food. If we go for a meal, which is very rare, I enjoy it. I train hard. I do the supplements. I drink the water. I do the things, and I just enjoy being. And when I look at my physique, and even from the standpoint of my gut, my being able to go to the toilet, being able to sleep, like all of these things, when we've got things in our mind, and this is relating to the relationship with food, if we are so tightly wound, if we are so stressed about the meal prep, the macros, the this, the that, I mean, this can go into multitude different directions. It's stress on the body, it's stress on your physique, and are you gonna get, and I can say this objectively, I'm not saying this to blow my own trumpet, you know me, guys. What I'm saying is allowing myself to heal the mind, I'm now yielding the results through my physique. It's happening by just doing because my mind is free and I'm enjoying bodybuilding. And I just I can't quite believe it. But it's taken 13 years to get here, 4 years being with Matt. And still now I'll say to him, because self-coaching, obviously I'm making the decision. So sometimes I'll go, this is what I'm thinking I'm going to do. Do you think this is too much food? Or do you think this is okay? And he's like, have the egg with the yolk today. And it's like, and I do, and I say, I know I've asked you this 5 times. Can I ask you a sixth? That's legit. Like, I do still have these things. But I like to do that because I like Matt to have input and I like to experience care because for so many years I haven't had that care. I haven't had someone that's wanting to see me succeed and I'm actually allowing, and he likes doing that and it brings us closer together and it seems very novel, but it's like we can have these conversations around it and I'm like, I get my egg today. Oh my God. And it's little things like this. And yeah, so in answer to your question, I can't believe it for myself. And it just feels so good to be able to share that with you guys as well in regards to your own journey. And if you are able to free up some of this mental space and be able to really enjoy the gift of bodybuilding for what it is, it changes the game. It really does. So many people have said, why are you doing a mini cut? You don't need to do a mini cut. You look fine. Because I want to do a fucking mini cut in my off season. I want to experience it. I love bodybuilding. I like all the phases. I want to get in. I want to push. I want to go back into my off season. You don't need to diet. Diet's just for stage. fuck you. Because I'll do what I want to do for my bodybuilding. And if you're at this point, you don't have to go to stage. You know my message, guys. What you're doing with your bodybuilding is on your terms. Bodybuilding is an umbrella term. We get the fundamentals, we get the goals that are appropriate to you. This is your journey, and at any point you can reroute. And the thing is, if you're listening and you've got to a point where, yes, the off season or the reverse out of work, it's not gone the direction that you hoped it would. Food has become, a difficult spot. There's overeating, there's binging, etc., etc. The joy is that we can go into mini phases of dieting for a bit of a tidy up and a bit of a resensitization. If you know you can get lean, you can get lean. You can go back to it. But like you said, we're going through the multiple phases. Every time I've dieted since dealing with these things, it's got better and better and better. Like now, I I'm nearly finishing this mini cut, and I'm like, I'm just gonna have some sticky rice on Saturday, and I'm so excited, and an egg because we're on the egg whites at the moment. I'm really happy with that. And then we'll maybe look at something. That's okay. I can have that. I can maybe have one of the cookies from Sainsbury's if the woman doesn't tell me how many calories are in them. But it's like, we will sit and we sit at Starbucks and we sit with the cookie and we're so happy. It's off season. I'm allowed to eat this food. That's okay. I'm allowed to have a delicious cookie and have a coffee and then go and train because we can do these things. But this is where I've had to experience having these things, look at my physique and go, whoa, okay, I can do that in an off season. That's okay. And that takes time as well.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted you to explore that because this comes from a centered around bodybuilding subject.
Yeah.
To unleash and unlock the best version of yourself and the best physique that you can possibly present, those things at the background, be them stressors that are external stressors that, need to be dealt with, like whether that's you're not sleeping,
Could be work,
all of those, yeah,
family
those
life.
things. And some of those things you can only manage the stress, you can't erase the stress, right? You can make, I always use this with clients where I say you can make an 11 out of 10 stress feel like a 9, and then you might make a 9 feel like an 8, and then like a 7. But it's never going to be a 0. Like it might register very, very low, and then you'll have your threshold of like either restricting or overconsumption of food to be like, when I get to a 9, I'm hitting the dominoes or I'm hitting the carrot sticks. Like one of the
The
two of
subconscious
those.
is like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's like, but then it's like those things could be a 7 or those things could be a 5. And you can bring those things down over time. And this is where you're not trying to solve those things overnight.
You can
You're
get better.
improving it. Yeah. Every conversation that we've had, every conversation that we've had outside of this, every time we've had something challenged, every time we've learned something new, like those things gradually get better. Sometimes they're like 0.01%, sometimes they're 5%, and those things take on leaps, and then you are able to experience new things. But with this being centered around bodybuilding, what I have seen and what I have witnessed with you is that evolution and it being very much on a one-to-one paradigm with your physique, and the more you've gone with it and the more you've embraced that and the more you've been able to do that and challenge that narrative, those things have improved. And that's from a completely your physique basis, not based on the emotion that I feel for you, just based upon that. And that was always the thing. And that's where sometimes when people from the outside are giving that input, it's being able to go, hmm, where is that coming from? And this is where I say when people say stuff like if you have a bias, and this is why for the most part it's not good to have a bias about certain things. Everyone's got some certain things around that. But if someone says something about something that you believe in firmly and you go, oh, that pissed me off a little bit. Well, why did it piss you off? And like if something triggers you in that way, that can give something to have an understanding of what that feels like.
Mm.
And then you can dig into those things. And it is just that exploration. And that's one of the great things about life, I think, is the fact that we have all of these thoughts and feelings, we have all of this conscious thought, and we get to spend time there if we want. And if we want to improve on that or want to better ourselves in that way or want to challenge that narrative and unlock something else. And it's understanding this one-to-one paradigm with like how physiologically stressed you are about certain things and the physique response. Because if those things are going on in the background, it might be background chatter, but it's still there and it can magnify and it can be quieter when you go through the final stages of prep because you just don't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with it. And then it can come steamrolling in when you finish your diet and all of those things come off the back of it. And that's where then you're like, oh, holy shit. And that's where you can end up in that position where you're like, oh, my off season hasn't gone how I necessarily want. And this is the thing about being more educated and going through the process is then you're equipped with more tools, right? So you can actually do that. Like when we're talking about people who know about nutrition, know about training, know about calorie deficit, know about manipulating all these things. And if you're a bodybuilder, you know about these things. You know more than most people. So therefore you have the tools and you're gathering more and more tools all the time. And it's just understanding which tools you need to use at that time. And sometimes those tools aren't calorie deficit or calorie surplus. Those are how can I
Relieve
manage that?
stress or
Yeah. And how can I listen to myself a little bit more and just write that stuff down, get it all out, thought dump it, whatever it might be, and that leads to a better physique later on down the line, or the ability to generate a better physique, or just the ability to generate more happiness internally, which then will potentiate yourself into a physique. And understanding that food is not just calories in, calories out. It is not just ice cream and carrots. It's everything in between and how you feel about those things and the things that you can build with those things. And when you're in such a pressure cooker environment, it would be weird if you didn't have some kind of thought process that go around something that you hyperfixate on, and your chances are you're not alone in that. And to talk about it, as we've spoken about, is
mm,
one of the best things that you can do. And maybe that isn't something that you can do right now with someone else, but maybe that person will come along, or maybe you'll hear someone else talk about something that we've spoken about, and you'll be like, oh, I actually listened to this podcast about that, and then we were talking, and then you end up talking and meeting someone, and that's generally how that stuff kind of works. Because I've spoken to loads of people over my years of just talking about stuff that then I've spoken to a client about it, and then I've spoken to someone else about it, and I've spoken to someone else about
ripple
it, and you
effect.
get insight. Yeah, it's that
Mm.
ripple effect. Yeah.
The one thing as well on top of that before if you've got any questions is when you are sort of seeking support and finding your people that you would want to maybe facilitate that trust with, if you want to talk to people about your relationship with food, there is in the bodybuilding space. So there's two camps here. So in the bodybuilding space, sometimes if people have got difficulties with their relationship with food, they can gravitate towards each other and almost become a team of yes men. So it's like the pacification to, oh, it's okay. And then the event happens again, whatever it is, whatever realm, whether it's the restriction, the overconsumption, or what have you. Then you almost can feed into a bit of a toxicity environment without realizing because you're both doing the same thing. So that can happen. Also, people outside of bodybuilding, if we're talking about outside of prep, but you deserve to have this food. Yeah, but I've brought you this food. Yeah, but you work really hard so you can have this food. And they're not thinking about your physique outcome, whether you're going to do excess cardio the next day because you feel bad, whether you're going to go to bed with acid reflux. Nor should they to a certain degree because they're outside of your narrative. So those two things can lead to a bit of toxicity as well. So again, it starts to sort of narrow who you could maybe lean on and gain support from. But it is important to think about these things because I've seen it many, many times, whether it's partners, friends, where you're like feeding off each other's, whether I would say disorders or ways of thinking, behaving, because you're both doing it. So one person does it. Oh, well, I did it as well last night. And it starts to make it a normal thing. And then you're in this echo chamber of two people that are essentially suffering with the same thing,
Mm.
which can happen as well.
I think that's well, I touched on this with a client yesterday. We were talking about holistic approaches in terms of like he was referencing the all-encompassing way of like nutrition, training, like rehabilitation kind of side of stuff. And he also mentioned that sort of be kind to yourself. And I said to him, like previously, that sort of holistic's kind of been bastardized to a certain degree, and
Like
people
we,
being a bit like woo woo kind of thing of like, yeah, I'm gonna hold up some herbs and hope for the best. Like, okay, cool. But then the be kind to yourself thing is like, that is exactly, and this is what I said to him. I was like, be kind to yourself is that there's a difference between being kind to yourself and then just sort of bullshitting yourself into a position where you're just,
It's okay.
yeah, you're just making excuses and being like, just be kind to yourself.
This
Being
is why it's
kind,
hard, that frame.
yeah, because be kind to yourself is like, well, be kind to yourself. Be kind, being kind to myself wasn't smashing four boxes of, or packets of cookies, right? Like that wasn't being kind to myself. That was me trying to replace some form of pain with some form of pleasure over a period of time. Like, so you have to be really careful in what you're perceiving in the time is kindness. And that delves into that different self-actualization. You have to be like, okay, if I'm saying be kind to myself, what is actually being kind to myself? Because there's being kind in the moment in the emotion, which is going to be the knee-jerk reaction. And then there's being kind to my future self.
Who has a goal or
Yeah,
yeah.
or is struggling with some feelings, who needs a little bit of help at that moment in time. And then being able to go, okay, being kind to future me by looking after current me, I want to do this emotionally, but actually, if I think about it,
I'm
and
gonna
I,
nourish myself.
yeah, and whatever that is, like whatever that is in that time, and then you get both perspectives, right? You get the immediate emotion, because that immediate emotion is I'm really, really sad, or I'm really angry, or I'm really happy, or I'm really this,
Ah,
and I want to do this. And if I'm being kind to myself, and what I think that means right now is this. But if I think about me in an hour's time or a week's time, and I've done loads of this stuff that I'm telling myself to do right now, that version of me isn't probably going to be as happy or isn't going to be as fulfilled. Or it's really, I'm going to be in the same position regardless if I do this immediate action now. So actually, if I do this instead or I do nothing, I
this
can ride
this
it
is
out.
Matt's brain.
Yeah, 100%. Like, welcome to, yeah, yeah. And these are the conversations that very much came out in Australia, voice note to myself, and I'm scrolling back going, who's this guy? This guy's written a book. But those are the things that you can kind of go through. And that's where, this holistic thing, this like be kind to yourself. Again, the way you say something, the way someone can come over to you and say one thing could be interpreted by five different people in different ways because they've had five different experiences leading up to that point, and the way they say it is not the way someone else is used to saying it. So when you're talking to yourself in these moments, or when someone else is coming in, to your point, around you, like have you got a Matt who's there going, you should do this, and you're going, you trying to sabotage my bodybuilding? Like, or are
An
you,
egg yolk. Ah!
how dare you? Keep your micronutrients.
Do any of you guys have any questions for us? Oh, look, we might have answered them already without them, haven't we?
We basically solved nutrition.
What I will say, guys, is of course, as bodybuilders, Matt said, and I just want to highlight this, we're absolutely going to have certain ways of food prepping, eating food, environments we want to eat in. What I've learned is that's okay. Like, I don't want to fit everyone else's narrative. If I need to have my food heated up in the microwave for exactly 2 minutes and we don't have seconds on it, but if I wanted it for 2 minutes and 9 seconds, that's how I want it. Because it's my food, it's my choice, it's my bodybuilding. That's okay. It's when it starts to affect, of course, if it becomes neurotic or I'm having a go at you and da 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 da, that's when it can start to ripple. But that comes with Matt knows I have a certain way of doing things, but I just do it. So it's not like, by the way, Matt, I'm going to heat this up for 2 minutes and 9 seconds. Be ready. Da da da. It's just 2 minutes out and you get ready. It's just almost an unspoken message. But be okay with having certain things that you want to do around, how you like to eat your food, how you like to prepare it. Take yourself off and do it. Matt lets me just go and do my thing, and I actually enjoy it. I just put the music on, do my food prep. I'm in my bubble, Sarah's bubble, and I feel like there is going to be elements of it would probably be a bit weird, like you said, if we didn't have certain ways to do things, because I like broccoli cooked in a different way to Matt likes broccoli cooked as an example, right? So that's okay as well. We are competitive bodybuilders. A lot of our narrative is filled with the macros, the food plan, the food. So doing things a certain way, I don't feel, as long as it's,
Yeah.
and that comes with the acceptance and the acknowledgement that that's part of you and that's how you like it. Because it's when you try and hide it, when you try and fight it, and that's when it can be, negative in your own mind.
Yeah, everyone's got their that's the thing, right? Like you're finding your thing is I call it your blueprint. You're finding your thing, like how you generate said outcome that you want out of this your way. And you can take all of what we've spoken about, all of the things that you find around, you hear, you take input from, and you go, right, that bit there works. What they said worked. That bit sounds like it might work, and I'll implement that, and then you do that.
Or
Because
you can change your mind as well.
yeah,
Remember that?
well, you've changed your mind on
I've
stuff.
changed my
I've
mind.
changed my mind on stuff.
I
Like,
actually listen to Matt now. Sometimes.
yeah, yeah. Again, don't listen to everything, right? Like, but you get the joy of doing that, and that's where you're not closed off, and you can be like you can be as you were skeptical. It's wise to be skeptical because if you take all of those points from people as they say them, like well, if you just go, oh, I'm just going to implement that now from day one, like I'm just going to do all of that. You can just take parts of it, or you can go and just digest it. You don't have to again solve it right now or by tomorrow. You get to play around with it.
And bodybuilding is a lifestyle.
Yeah,
Like, it's not just the food, like, it's the life. It's the life. The progression is the life. When you buy into the lifestyle, when you execute the lifestyle, you live as a bodybuilder rather than feel like you're just in this, like, nobody is a robot, guys. Like, because robots don't have feelings, and we do have feelings, and that goes for all of the people I speak to in the bodybuilding space. You know the wild and wacky stories I've got in this brain, and that's important because this is the coolest thing in the whole world, ever, ever, ever. And I hope that this, even if you just took one little bit, I understand we've been on multiple different tangents, and it's not all going to apply to all of you. But sometimes it's just cool to sort of listen and be able to go, "Oh, okay, them two are really fucking weird." Thank you for coming, guys.
yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate you all.
Thanks very much.
No,
Thank-
thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Vic, and they're next to each other on the screen. Look.
Yeah.
Vic and Molly. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Rachel.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.